So I am so excited to sit here with you today, Pastor Deborah. I've known you since you were 6 years old.
Yep. Probably even longer, like maybe 5.
Right, it was probably 5 or 6. And actually, I don't even want to say that because now I'm aging myself. But anyway, you and Tavisha and Rami are the reason that your brother and I are together.
Yep.
You guys started this M&M Detective Agency.
We were determined to be related. We were all best friends, but we were like, the best friendship is not enough. We want to be like bound to each other. We want to be actually related. So literally we thought like, who could we hook Mona up with? And then we were like, Matt,
Right.
it's perfect. So we'd find little like reasons why. Matt, don't you want to take me over to Visha's house?
Yes.
That would be so good. The rest is history.
The rest is history. So it's been amazing watching you grow from, this shy, young girl into this amazing beast of a worshiper for God, and watching you become a wife and a mother, and now, being planted in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Woo, woo.
And just seeing all that God is doing in your life. And I wanted you to, talk a little bit about, before we get into marriage and parenting, what has it been like for you, growing up in a godly household, watching your parents pastor, and just seeing really the church evolve, and now, coming into your own as, a 21st century leader?
Yeah, it's been incredible. And, you always talk to people about how you really never know what your life is going to look like. You can have an idea, or you can envision or try to have dreams or plans, your own plans. But when you really put your life in God's hands and you say, God, I'm going to follow the direction you lead, then you can kind of sometimes end up in places that you never expected. I grew up, with godly parents. I was a PK, as they say, which means you're a pastor's kid, which for any pastor's kid, you just know. When you say you're a PK, it's just like an unwritten thing. It's like, you're kind of used to this idea of people's eyes being on you, and being expected to have a level of, not perfection, but it's almost like their eyes are on you and you have to make sure you keep yourself in a certain way. And as a young person, it felt like pressure, and things, about that. I remember one time I was a teenager and I literally met one of my brother Joey. We met downtown to like go get some pizza or something. I was in college or something. He was working, and we met, and someone saw us and didn't know he was my brother. Oh my and they like came back and told my mom, like, I saw her holding hands with somebody. I was like, Mom, I was with Joey. So it was things like that I remember being a young person and feeling like, gosh, this is really, I don't really like that, But then I got to an age where I knew, I was like, okay, God is going to be something I take seriously. And if I'm going to shun the appearance of evil, if I'm going to be someone who lives uprightly before the Lord, then I can't be upset about things like that, because I want to be making sure that I'm living uprightly. And so it's something I adopted. And then as a college age person, the Lord really became real for me. And just as I've gone on this journey, I never expected, even when I married my husband, I never expected for him to become a pastor. I never, I was blessed to be in the ministry. It was something that I never thought I would lead worship. I knew I would sing, but I never even thought I would lead worship. But it was something I fell in love with. And I just felt like, God, if you have me on this journey, if you are doing things in my life, I'm not gonna say no. I'm not gonna think that my plans are better. I'm not gonna say, well, no, you want me down this path, but I'm not going down that path. Because I felt like I know he knows what's best for me, and what he has planned for me is gonna be so much more amazing than I could ever imagine for myself. And so I feel like that's how Will and I even are now. You know, we've been planted in Worcester. I love it because I guess a big fear of mine has always been to, you know, it's funny how the enemy works. He makes you feel like you're too afraid to do anything, but you're too afraid. For me personally, I was too afraid to do something, or I was afraid that I never would do anything. And so it's like a catch-22. You can't win no matter which way you go. And so for me, going on this journey of moving to Worcester and starting this work for the kingdom, it's like it's an adventure, and I know it's where God has led me to. All of my life, all of the different things I've struggled with, it's led me on a path of where I am right now. And when you look back on it and you realize, wow, this is where God has me right now, and he's equipped me, and he's prepared me, and I didn't even know I was being prepared. So I'm just grateful that God sees it fit to use us, and that's all I want. All I want is for him to get the glory out of everything that I do.
Well, that's powerful, and you've had, you know, an amazing example in your parents that have led the way. So now, you know, you have taken this faith step. Your entire family is pretty much walks on water, and moves to this new town. 3 children, you and your husband. What is that like in marriage? Because a lot of times, like especially being in quarantine, right?
Oh, yeah.
And quarantine, you're home all day with your spouse, and a lot of, you know, a lot of marriages are kind of in some rocky places right now, right?
Right.
So you're not only are you in quarantine, but you're in this like foreign land.
Yeah.
So how have you and Pastor Will, your husband, been able to navigate new place, new season, new house, you know, new drive?
Yeah.
How are you navigating this? Because it's very similar to a lot of couples that are in quarantine and something new.
Yeah.
How do you keep your marriage fresh and alive in this new season?
Well, in terms of keeping our marriage fresh and alive, I think, you know, one of the things that I always say to my husband, it's kind of a joke, but I'm like, you have a young wife, because my husband is like 4 years older than me, so I'm like, you got to keep up with me. But what I mean is, you know, I really am a big believer in never stop flirting with each other, never stop courting each other. And never get too, I mean, you're very familiar with each other, but it's okay to still behave like you're dating, or behave like we're still kind of cute little, you know. So I think that's been, honestly, this quarantine for our marriage has been amazing, because my husband can be, and I don't want to be negative, but he can be the type that gets consumed with work. I don't want to call him a workaholic, but he can get consumed with whatever he's focused on. And you know, through the years, there have been times where I've been like, okay, when you're here, you have to be here, you have to be present, you have to put your phone away, it's okay to stop working. It's okay when you get home for a couple hours, it's okay. And so it's been great, because usually he's so tired at the end of the day that, you know, he's a morning person and I'm a night person. So usually by the time he gets home from work, he's so tired. He'll give to the kids. We'll spend time. We'll have dinner, whatever it is, and he'll put them to bed. And then by then he's like, babe, I don't know if I can, And I'm up like, let's watch something. Let's do something. And it's hard for him because he's so tired. He's up at 5 a.m. That's just the way his body works. And so this time has been cool because he's not up at the crack of dawn. And so we're able to he has some time in the evening where he's not as exhausted. And it has been lovely to just feel like, we have some time together when I'm not exhausted in the morning, he's not exhausted in the night. But yeah, it's been incredible. When you ask about how do you navigate just being in this new season of us moving to this new place, and yes, it's not like that far away from our home base. Worcester is about an hour away, so it's a different side of the state, but it's not like another state. But at the same time, I think the thing that always runs through my mind is what my mom always used to say is God will give you grace for what you have to do in that moment. And for me, I just try not to go too far ahead. I try to just say, God, you're giving me grace for this season of my life. Help me to get out of this season what I need to get and what I need that's going to prepare me for my next season. And Lord, make sure I'm being grateful for what it is that you're giving me in this season. Even if it's difficult, I know it's going to strengthen me and it's going to prepare me for something in the next season. Yeah.
I think, that notion of being grateful, the Bible tells us to give thanks with a grateful heart, right? And one of the things about you, Pastor Deb, is that you are a person that exudes joy. And I believe that joy is really the center of gratitude. And understanding, we can find joy in really the smallest things. We all woke up this morning, we have breath. The Bible says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. So in this season of transition, one of the things that I feel like is a takeaway from what you said is really being centered in God, but then also being centered in yourself. Can you talk about that? A lot of women today are looking for their husbands to almost be everything to them. And so how do you find your center?
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think that, even in being someone who, it's funny, I never really felt like I was looking to get married when I did. I felt like I met my husband and it just happened that way. I was very young. I was 19 when I met my husband, and we got married when I was 21 and he was 25. But one of the things that I was making sure about myself was that I was a whole person. And it is something that we're always speaking to young women and even young men about, is that you can't expect anyone to complete you, even if it's not your spouse. It could be a friend, it could be a parent, it could be anyone. And the only person that can really fulfill you and really make you that whole person that you need to be is God. And you have to be a whole person. You can't be, okay, when I get married, he's, then I'll be everything that I want to be. No, he's going to enhance that, but it's got to be something that you feel on the inside. And so I feel like because there was a lot of things that I really overcame before I got married, there was a lot of things in my life that I just felt like I was completely free from. And so I didn't have those things that were holding me back, or I didn't have, I didn't have those experiences. Sometimes the experiences, like bad experiences, can kind of hold us back or kind of get in the way of our future. And I was just determined to not let any of those things hinder my future. And so I think we have to really strive for that and really be okay with who God created us to be and be a whole person because really, we're enhancing each other.
Right.
And your husband he is going to love you enough to show you parts of yourself that you never would have seen about yourself, and you're going to do the same for him. But if you're not in a place where you're good with who you are, then people can kind of get offended by that, or they can feel like, wait, hold on, because they're not really ready. They're not mature enough to really accept that. And I think that's something that when you're getting married, you have to really be in a mature place to be able to say, okay, I can hear that about myself, and it's not going to make me like completely lose my head.
Right.
I can hear that and know it's coming from a loving place, and I can continue to grow from that. And I think if you're willing to keep growing together, then you can get through anything. I say that to couples all the time. I say to them, if you can continue to grow together and never give up.
Yes.
You just have to keep knowing that they want what's best for you and you want what's best for them. And both of you are doing that, then you can get through anything together.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is very, very true. And I think the other key component to that is maturity.
Yeah, it is.
In order to make a marriage work, like you said, both people have to be willing to look at themselves.
Yeah.
And in order to look at yourself, you have to be mature.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, that's just,
And you can't make it all about you. You have to be willing to give up some of those things that you feel like it's not all about you,
Right.
and that's okay. If both of us are trying to do for the other and trying to help the other and trying to help the other person grow, then we're golden,
Right. And I think it goes back to your first point of, you have to be a whole person when you get married, because you can't be 50, you can't be 50%.
Right.
You have to be 100% so that when someone says to you, you could do a little better in this area.
Right.
And you can say, gulp. I guess I could.
Right.
So tell us what it's like. You are the mother of 3 children, all very different.
Yes.
Extremely different.
They are.
And how is it being a parent and navigating through the differences of all of your children and raising up spiritually fit children and in these times that we live in, very sexually crazed world and all kinds of stuff on TV and internet. What are some of the things that you can share with mothers that have children under the age of 10?
Yeah, so to just speak to the how to try to keep our kids as, I don't want to say sheltered, because I don't want it to sound like it's a bad word, but to me it's a good thing to try to shelter them until they're at a place where they're mature enough to make their own decisions and things like that. But I am very hypervigilant about protecting them, which means passwords on everything. I'm very super aware of everything they're watching, of what they're trying to do on their devices. If devices are getting in the way, I'm just like, we'll just take them. Because I'm just so vigilant about their purity staying intact and trying to protect them. But yeah, in parenting children that are all different, it's been amazing. The funniest thing about my daughter Ella, she's the middle child. So my oldest is Jackson, he's 8. My daughter Ella, she's 6. My daughter Aria is 4. And Ella is exactly like me. She is, it's weird. Like, I look at her and I feel like I'm looking at a 6-year-old version of myself.
Wow.
And it's funny, I was talking to Raimi actually about this the other day, that it's so interesting how the kids that are a lot like us can sometimes be the ones that we have the least amount of patience with. And I think it's because there's things in our lives that we've overcome already, that we feel like, girl, you just got to get up and you just got to deal with it. Yeah. And the child that we may not relate to as much, we have so much more patience for. And she was saying the exact same thing. I thought I was the only one. And it was so interesting how when I look at Ella, it's almost like I'm looking at the things of myself that I don't like about myself. Or there's things that I'm feeling like, man, I gotta help her overcome that, And so sometimes it's tough to see those things and recognize that, just like you overcame, you have to help her overcome those things, and to try to have that patience with her. And it's almost like you're having patience with you're forgiving yourself, and you're having patience with yourself. And it's crazy. But yeah, all of them are so different. My son is very, very aware, very intellectual, asks a million questions. He's a lot like Will. He's just very head smart. And for me, I'm always trying to get him to understand, he's relating to God in this intellectual way, but also I want you to know that it's a relationship. It's not just, look how smart I am about all that I know, and all that I'm learning, but it's a relationship, and you spend time with God, and I just think it's amazing that my kids have really picked up on just the way that we live. A lot of my dad always used to say that your life is the sermon.
Yes.
And sometimes it doesn't have to be something that you're preaching to people. It's just the way that you live your life that can really witness and can really point people toward the Lord. And so my kids have just picked up on the life that we live in front of them. And I just think it's great. I think it's beautiful because, no, we're not perfect. But that's what they're picking up on. They're learning how to, as soon as something hurts, they they lay their hands and pray. Or as soon as something, as soon as a song comes on, they want to worship. As soon as and so that's just, I love that that's being ingrained in them. And I think I just pray for God to continue to give me the patience. And that's one of the things I feel like I've learned in quarantine. I'm sure a lot of moms and dads have been learning that, is because, they're there all the time. And that's one of the things I feel like God, he woke me up one morning, and it was like, this is the thing right now that I'm really trying to get to, and it's that patience. I never thought I was impatient, but I noticed there were things about my ways that I would relate to my kids sometimes that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna check that. And I think it's something that God has really been working on me with in this quarantine. So it's been awesome.
Well, thank you so much. I want to say to you, I remember there were two specific times that I remember in your journey as a wife and a mother and a woman that continues to evolve as God transitions you through life. And I think this is a good point for women to hear, especially women that are young in marriage and still young in parenting. But we were at the bookstore in Needham. And you were, I think you and Will I think you guys were a couple of years married. Maybe it was a couple of years. Yeah. And we had a conversation, and you were in that transition period of you had been out of college a couple of years and still, navigating through things, and you were there, and you were, really trying to grow into this season of life that God had you in. And I just remember us having a really good conversation. And then the second time we were here, my office was in the back, and you had just had Jackson.
Yeah.
And this is I thought it was just such a great conversation on, and I don't think people really think about this, that when you get married and then you have children, it's kind of like, you're transitioning into motherhood. You're not old, but you're not, you're like, I'm at a different phase. I don't want to be
Yeah.
seen as like, a young adult. I'm like,
Right.
I'm a young adult, but I'm married.
Right.
And so we had a really great conversation just about like clothing transition.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I just want to say like every step of the way from the 6-year-old Debbie to the teenage Debbie to the college Debbie to the, newly married to now, being planted and fulfilling your own destiny. It has been amazing to watch your journey, amazing to see you really evolve from the shy Debbie who didn't want to dance on stage or say the Rise Pledge or say any of those things, to now here you are preaching the gospel, singing, worshiping your heart out, writing songs. I mean, and so I think that, in this season, for the world to see a woman evolve in front of them. And, as you guys are planted in Worcester, I know there's going to be a revolution out there. And so thank you so much for sharing your story, just a little tiny piece of it. And you and Pastor Will every Thursday at 2.
1.
Thursday at 1.
Yes, 1 o'clock.
Thursday at 1 o'clock, do a series called Planted.
Planted, yes.
And it is so powerful. We'll make sure we put it on the screen for people to go on.
Jubilee Worcester Instagram.
Jubilee Worcester Instagram. Yes.
Jubilee Worcester, yep. And Facebook. We were like, well, we haven't done Facebook Live, so we'll probably try to do Instagram Live and Facebook
Okay.
Live. Yeah,
Yes.
Jubilee
Yes.
Worcester. Yeah.
But powerful. Your children are powerful, amazing worshipers. And so thank you, Pastor Deb,
Thank you so
for
much
being
for
here,
having
waiting.
me.
And
It's all right.
been such a day, and we're just
amazing day.
Oh my gosh,
Amazing.
this takeover, we have something for everyone to walk away with and have some good ammunition to like really live their life out loud.
Yeah, I'm hoping everyone just sat and just received today and just wrote in their notebooks. And I mean, it's a beautiful day, amazing.
Yes. And
So glad we were able to do something. Usually this is our DASH conference every year. We're able to just be here and just be together and be
worshiping.
sisters. Yes.
I know that's for me, that was the part that I felt like, when we had to postpone the conference to next year, I was like, okay, because we had just come off of such an amazing conference in March.
Yeah.
But the Lord really spoke and said, this conference online is really rebirth. He took our conference and he redesigned it. So he took that. I mean, isn't that powerful?
Amazing.
I said, my God, only you could do something like that. You could put a vision and then you could say, in 2 seconds, I'm going to rebirth the vision that I already gave you.
Yes, and it's like so many of us feel like this is a rebirth. Even in this time of quarantine, we're resting and really getting restoration and just refreshing from the Lord. And for some of us, and I just feel like, for this to be a rebirth from that is absolutely. I think a lot of people are going to feel like that, you know. After this season, it's a rebirth.
Yes, emerging and being different. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yay.
And this has been an awesome time. We are looking forward to our next segment. Stay tuned. Don't leave. Stay with us. We're rocking and rolling.
Whoop, whoop.